He has become a bit of a just a pride of Britain, almost. He's just so willing to make a fool out of himself that you almost can't hate him, you just have to respect that.
Who would have thought? You know, a bunch of, you know, dancers, a wannabe pop star, and a very butch artistic director.
What you see is a joy, and he makes you smile.
Oh, the reaction from the people on the street has been fabulous. Oh, I tell you what, builders, plumbers, firemen, policemen, they're the ones that stop me. I mean, you would, well, and your grannies and your little kids, but, you know, they're great, but I'm quite happy with the policemen and the firemen. I mean, I'm like, arrest me, I'm on fire.
Get down on it.
Pineapple Dance Studios, yay, Andrew Stone, boo. He's quite delusional, this guy. I don't think he will ever comprehend reality of the moment. He's not going to be able to make it as a pop star.
The minimum I want is a #1 record in most countries in the world at some point and leave a legacy behind.
I don't want to say deluded and I don't want to say harmless, but it's hard to not talk about him without using those two words, because he is a bit deluded, but he's harmless.
Being on a TV show and having a #1 record is going to be a big explosion and probably very hard to compete with on many levels. So I'm very lucky, you know. But I'm not in competition with anyone. The only person I'm in competition with is myself, to always improve on myself.
Will Andrew Stone ever headline Glastonbury? Are you on glue? Whoa. No.
None of us expected what has happened, and it's all a bonus. And if it was all end tomorrow, we could all turn around and absolutely pee our pants and think, well, who would have thought? So, you know, it is what it is, and we are what we are.
When England are rubbish, which happens a lot, it's nice to see other teams suffer.
After underachieving in 2 world wars, the French then cheated their way into the World Cup finals in 2010. Once there, the team decided to indulge in their country's national pastime and went on strike.
We, the Irish, I think we all know we didn't qualify because of the cheating French.
Everybody wanted them to do poorly in the World Cup, and they didn't spoil any expectations whatsoever.
Still a chance, and Umphila! 2 for South Africa!
Being knocked out in the first round caused such anger back in France, they even went beyond Gallic shrugging.
It's just pathetic. We went to France not long after that, and there was a genuine sense of kind of national shame and humiliation. And I suppose there is something in the Brits that always likes to see the French going through a period of shame and humiliation.
People feel like they cheated to get to the World Cup and they came out rather kind of embarrassingly, man. So, like they say, what goes around comes around.
And was there any sympathy from Ireland?
French have nothing to offer the world. The last decent singer was Edith Piaf, and she was a collaborator.
Fans of oily cormorants were in luck in 2010 when Eco Geddon struck in the Gulf of Mexico. When asked to describe the devastation, one local said,
It's devastating.
There were many casualties of the spill, sea life, livelihoods, and BP chief Tony Hayward's leisure time. And that got right on his tit end. Poor geezer.
We're sorry for the massive disruption it's caused to their lives.
Good so far?
And, you know, there's no one who wants this thing over more than I do. You know, I'd like my life back.
Uh-oh, knob alert. What a prick.
Tony Hayward, the boss of BP, was a slightly mysterious figure because he didn't really do television interviews. So all of a sudden, when this crisis broke out, he's suddenly doing TV, and he's obviously not really used to it. You know, perhaps the first law of public relations in a crisis is never say what you really think.
I'd love my life back.
I mean, it couldn't be worse. All these people's lives, they think, are ruined by this disaster. And there's him saying, I want to have my life back. It's all about me.
Tony Hayward could have handled the situation better if he'd have given a shit. Because essentially his attitude would have been fine if he was the vice head of a school and there was a leak in the gym and it meant the postponement of a five-a-side tournament. That would have been all right, his kind of, well, stuff happens kind of approach. But it was just awful. Especially when he went sailing around the Isle of Wight. you know, in the middle of it. And you think it's just so insensitive. But he's probably thinking, well, I can't go sailing around the Gulf of Mexico, it's full of oil. He was getting to the point, it was like the kind of the mad defence of a cheating husband, where it's like, you know, you think it's easy to live with the guilt, you know, to put up with your mother and your sister looking at me like that? I mean, you pushed me to this. You forced me to have an affair. It doesn't suck itself, sweetheart.
You did a great job, mate. Thanks very much. Great job, thanks.
Next is the hilarious moment when thinking man scumbag racist Nick Griffin got invited to the Queen's garden party, only to have his invitation revoked.
Nick Griffin was invited to Buckingham Palace for the Queen's garden party, and then they withdrew that invitation because he started showing off, going, oh, I'm going to the garden party. Started telling all his voters to email in questions for him to ask the Queen. They said that he was using his invite for political purposes to further his political career.
I think the Queen should be allowed to invite who she likes. And if, you know, it's like if you're like all 4 years old, sometimes your mum makes you have like someone you really hate at school come to a party, and it ruins it. So the Queen doesn't want like Nick Griffin there, does he? Spoiling it all with his melty face.
It was a weird thing because I think he got the invite because he was an MEP. It's like, you know, qualifying for the World Cup because you're the host.
I always think it's amazing that Nick Griffin is a member of the European Parliament, because going over there, taking all their jobs.
You have to be careful if you invite people like the BNP to be in the same room as you, because I remember once I was a DJ at a BNP disco, and I played a song by Foreigner, a band, and it all kicked off really badly.
All sorts of people go and meet the Queen. You know, Nelson Mandela went and met the Queen. He had an appalling criminal record.
The fact that they then went back on it was hugely embarrassing. And of course it gave Nick Griffin massive publicity, which he must have absolutely loved. And the kind of people that share his ideals and
well, if it was up to me, I'd close the borders and blow the bloody Eurotunnel up.
Would have been delighted. So from a propaganda point of view, that was worth fortunes to him.
Peter Tatchell called him a gutless coward, which is actually inaccurate, because if there's anything you can say about Nick Griffin, he's not gutless. And that may have been why they disinvited him, because he's clearly not someone who knows when to put the brakes on at a free buffet.
Really disappointed that he's got such a cool last name like Griffin. I mean, Griffin, come on, that's a mythical beast that's part eagle, part lion, part snake. Whereas Nick Griffin is all snake.
I did say to the palace about the garden party thing, do not invite that man. He's offensive, his right-wing views are just horrible, but then I suppose the Queen is married to him, so what can you do?
Get ready to press record, Freudian slip fans, as Radio 4 becomes Radio Swore.
First up after the news, we're going to be talking to Jeremy Hunt, the Culture Secretary, about broadband.
James Naughtie clearly didn't mean to mix up his consonants, but his staggering attempt to style it out without referring back to his cock-up didn't fool anyone.
Jeremy Cunt, the Culture Secretary, had his name Freudianly transposed.
By the time Andrew Marr discussed it later, it is thought he was the victim of a reverse Freudian slip, which was repeated later in Parliament itself. But we can't show you that because whatever MPs say in Parliament, including cunt, we're not allowed to make fun of. Janice Dickinson was considered one of the world's most beautiful women just 60 short years ago. But she must be losing it when she can't even attract I'd fuck a barber's floor Callum Best.
My encounter with Janice Dickinson, wow, where can I start, to be honest with you?
This celebrity come dine with me became notorious for its harrowing scenes of sexual harassment.
On screen, she is so full on, so in your face, but sometimes when you're sitting down for dinner, you know, you want it to be some decorum and some manners. And without being too rude, she was lacking the manners and the decorum.
I love Janice Dickinson. She's such a dramatic character. She reminds me of someone that say, we're all damaged. She's damaged.
Oh my God, it's so hot in here. When you get to be my age, dearie, and those hot flashes hit you,
It's a good look for you. She opened my freezer, she lifted up her skirt over her head, just her underwear on underneath, and I'm going, oh my God, what's going on? This is all being filmed on camera.